Monk mode entailed for me was deleting social media apps off my phone. That included like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook Messenger. Also, I wanted to wake up at 6 a.m., hit the gym, do what the billionaire routine looks like. I did monk mode for 6 months, but it really just became a lifestyle.
When you talk to them about this, do they understand it?
With the creator side, I don't think they fully understood it until I had my first post that went viral. That first viral post hit and it reached 2.3 million people. They were like, wow, okay, you're onto something. I just really laid out the main currency right now in this digital media age is attention. If you can capture attention and direct it into something, that's the secret of being a successful entrepreneur.
It does take a lot of guts to put yourself out there in the open and say you're going to share your ideas, your thoughts, and your perspectives. What made you say, I'm going to be a creator?
Because I was going through monk mode, there was a realization that
Yes. So we're in it again with another episode on the Body of Work podcast, better known as the BOWpod. And I just wanted to say on this episode that, the BOWpod was designed as a platform for me to share my journey through, this path of entrepreneurship. And now I'm super stoked that I get to share this platform with other creators who are also on their entrepreneurial endeavors. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Stanley Wang, buddy of mine that I met on Threads. And he writes about entrepreneurship, mindset, and well-being. So, Stanley, this is going to be a conversation between me and you from now on forth. And I like to start now by just asking, how are you? How are you feeling right now? Because I know it's evening where you are. You're in New Zealand. How are you feeling?
yeah. So hello everyone. Thanks for having me, Andy. How am I feeling? So guys, I'm based in Auckland, New Zealand. I'm feeling pretty excited. This is my first time doing like a podcast, my first podcast episode. So I'm feeling good. Feeling a little bit of nerves, but look, this conversation is just gonna flow on. I already know it.
Yeah. You know, don't feel too nervous because it's. I mean, it is nerve wracking to start off with. This week, this last Monday, I was actually on someone else's podcast for the first time, and it is a different experience being on the other side. And so I can really empathize a lot more with my guests when they come on the podcast. But again, like I said, I just want this to be a regular conversation, just like we had. I think it was last week, and
Hmm.
yeah, we're just gonna keep it nice and chill.
Yep,
So
I
we
love it.
we all right, nice. So we cross paths on Threads, surprise, and it's only appropriate if I kick things off the way I like to kick it off with creators that I meet on Threads. And the way I like to do that is going back to your very first thread. And I had to scroll back a while for yours because you're like a Threads OG. You started back in
Yeah.
August. And your first thread was this. I'm going to read it out. I have arrived. I am here to share my ideas and insights from my personal experience. I seek self actualization through personal growth and extreme accountability. I wish to serve others with this knowledge I've acquired to create a better future for us. This is the start of my journey. And I love that. And so I just want you to take me back about, I think it's like 11 months now to that post. What was going on with Stanley back then?
Wow, dude. I can't believe you scrolled that far, man. That's crazy. As you were reading that, I was just like, okay, this kind of does ring a bell. So, wow. So take it's really a long time ago. So, what was I going through then? You mentioned that I was writing on in August last year?
Yeah, you started
Okay,
in
so
August, yeah?
I would say then, man, it was my first time like jumping into the creator economy,
Mm.
and Threads was one of the first things that I decided to pursue. Um, I know we'll talk about the entrepreneurial journey a bit later on. But at that time of my life, I like to refer life as seasons. So during that season of my life, I was actually in this internet phenomenon called monk mode, which is kind of like being off social media and really just focusing on the grind. That was the phase that I was in. And as I was learning about entrepreneurship and being a creator, I understood the importance to write online and to just expose my ideas and share my ideas with the world essentially. Because being based in Auckland, New Zealand, where Auckland, I think the population is like 1.6 or 1.8 million people. It's just because of population density, it's relatively harder to find like minded people. And that was something I was struggling with at the time. And I wanted to just find people like yourself and also other creators that's on a similar journey. As we know, that entrepreneurship can also feel rather lonely. So that was sort of what I was going through. I was working a full time job back then as a data consultant, and it was my dream job initially, but I would say I didn't love it. So that was kind of where I was at.
Okay. Okay. And now, like, I like that you mentioned the monk mode, because I mean, for me, it's not a very I say common term. You don't hear about it too much, and so like you said, it's essentially a like a season where you kind of go offline, you go off the grid, I assume. And I just wanted to know, how long were you in, let's say, monk mode for, and what were you able to, let's say, discover about yourself during that period?
Yeah. So I started monk mode on the 17th of April. I vividly remember that moment because prior to that, I gave myself 2 months. I was being like, okay, on this date, you're going to do it. And what monk mode entailed for me was deleting social media apps off my phone. So that included like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook Messenger. I think those were the main ones from the top of my head. And also, I wanted to wake up at a certain time, and that time for me was at 6 a.m. Hit the
Yeah.
gym, do all that what the billionaire routine looks like, which is after it's like cold shower, sauna, meditation. That was my journey, and it was also finishing work at a regular 9 to 5, going home and try and build a business. I didn't know what that was going to look like at the time. It was just something I knew that I wanted to do. I did monk mode for oh, on paper 6 months, but it really
Oh,
just
wow.
became a lifestyle because I just kind of got used to it after a few months, and it was just weird going to bed later, and also my circadian rhythm was already set to that time, so it's still part of my lifestyle to today.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I've never had, like, let's say, intentional experience with monk mode, but I do recall myself being very much detached from social media coming off of the pandemic or around the pandemic for a very, very long time. And it was very daunting for me when I decided, like, hey, okay, now I want to give this thing a try again. So how was that for you when you, let's say, you came off of this detox, where generally you kind of feel like I can actually live life without social media. So I guess I want to know, how was that for you coming back onto the social space, and how has it been since? Like, have you been able to, let's say, navigate social media or your relationship with social media differently?
Yeah, that's honestly such a beautiful question. I'll start off with when I came back from social media. One of my first reaction or my a feeling, specifically dopamine, was I re-downloaded Instagram, I re-downloaded TikTok and Facebook Messenger, just receiving messages from friends
Mm.
instantaneously, scrolling through reels, the sensation and the speed that my heart was pounding after 6 months of not having that was ridiculous. And a learning from that right away was, oh my goodness, we, like, as humans in this digital world right now, we are so, like, unorganically stimulated constantly, and we have no idea. And this is really just to even compare. We don't need to go back to as far as like the hunter and gatherer days. We can just go back to 30 years ago, or even, I'm 28 years old. It can even go back to when I was a kid. I didn't have
Mhm.
that. I didn't grow up with like cell phones. Wasn't quite a iPad baby. Um, so now I'll go through how my relationship changed with social media, and that ties down directly to me being a creator as Threads. So prior to monk mode, I was actually I was someone who was quite addicted to social media, especially TikTok. I would scroll 2 to 3 hours on a Monday to Thursday night, which is after work, cooking dinner, get ready, and look, maybe it's like 7:30 at night, and then the next thing I know, I'm on my bed or I'm on the couch, and it's 10:30. Haven't done anything else, just been on TikTok scrolling for 3 hours, and it was really, it was mindless content. Look, I'm not here to discredit the content on TikTok. I now know that it's our relationship with the tool, which is our cell phone and social media, that's the issue. It's not the social apps itself. And maybe this is something that I couldn't have said at the time.
Mhm.
And it really shifted my relationship from a mindless consumer to a more intentional creator.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, I had to laugh when you talked about TikTok, and there's just something very, which is probably good for the platform, but it's just something very sticky about that platform that once you open it, it's like you're in it. And if you don't literally like intentionally pull yourself out, before you know it, you're going from educational content to I don't know, watching cat videos. I have it's just ridiculous how, yeah, it's just ridiculous how the platform works. And okay, let's change it up a bit, because, or I want to switch speeds. You, how do you say? N- so you're in New Zealand, and I remember, again, we crossed paths on Threads, and I believe a few months back you decided to go back to your hometown in China to visit some family and reconnect, with your, yeah, with your family there. So I was just curious, how did that transition happen with you, you know, coming from China and now ending up in New Zealand?
So, just for your context, so I was previously in New Zealand before that, and then I went back
Oh,
to China for 2 months to travel, and then now I'm back here.
yeah.
The reason why we went back on a trip was really because due to COVID, we weren't able. Well, I wasn't able to travel back to anywhere really, and I wasn't able to see my extended family. So I moved to New Zealand when I was 6 years old with my
Mhm.
parents, and then we just essentially immigrated to New Zealand. And we, before COVID, we would maybe go back once a year. However, because of COVID, and was also when I was before that, I was finishing off university and transitioning into full time work, and that just gave me far less flexibility. So yeah, it was good, man. Like, it was 8 years since I last went back, which was 2016.
Oh wow.
I was in China for 9 weeks, which is essentially the longest time that I've been back since I was 6 years old. Essentially, before I immigrated. It was weird, bro.
Why why
Like,
why why you say that?
it was weird, man, because I personally identify myself as Kiwi Asian, and I guess this is something we could go into, which is like an identity crisis where I kind of went through when I was little, of not knowing who I was, especially being ethnically like Asian Chinese, and being in New Zealand, and now going back there, I still feel a bit different because whether I look different because of the food that I eat. So I think, like, genetically, Asians who grow up in the West actually look a bit different
Mhm.
from Asians in the East. Um, Language barrier was a bit of a problem. Like, for example, no one would be able to tell that I wasn't from China until the moment when they pull out like a newspaper or like an article, and I'm like, no, I can't read that, or I read like a 6 year old, I write like a 6 year old, and look, there might be a bit of judgment from my end, which I'm projecting out, but it is uncomfortable when you're a grown person and you can't really navigate properly when you're in a different country like China.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm just curious, so like when you were back there, like did you feel like you didn't really belong anymore? Or like did like family like look at you differently?
Family didn't look at me differently.
Mm.
Um, that was that. Thankfully, like even though they did mention that, like, okay, you just look like you're not from here. Like from the way where there'll be things like from the way I talk, from the way I dress, the culture's different, and also the food that I choose to eat is different as well. um, I think for judgment or feeling different when I was on the streets, I would say not really. It wasn't that noticeable, simply because the moment you kind of like go out of your house or like your apartment, there's thousands of people already. So no one is really like paying attention to you. What I struggled with, or maybe I personally knew, was in China they have super apps, which is
Okay.
essentially, think about Instagram, Facebook, Uber Eats, what's that? It's not coming to my Airbnb, all in one place. So
Oh.
China has that, something like that, super app. It's all in one place. It's centralized. It's convenient for people to use. That was a bit hard for me to navigate because the UI and UX was a bit different, and also it was in a different language, which I can't really read. So that made
Mm.
things really difficult.
Yeah. Okay, okay. And okay, so you left when you were around 6 years old from China, you moved to New Zealand. Do you have any early memories of yourself like growing up in China? Like how was Stanley as a kid growing up?
Oh, that's such a good question. I don't think anyone has actually asked me that question before, man. Wow. I do have memory of myself growing up in China. I was I was raised in a privileged environment where dad was a entrepreneur,
Mm,
and where I'm going with this is something that I've actually learned recently. Was We were a very poor family from my dad and mum's generation. So there was a huge wealth gap when I was
mm,
growing up. I had a wonderful childhood. I loved my family. I loved my life there. Um, I just didn't really know what position I was in when I was in China. Um, yeah, that's all I got to say from that part.
yeah, and so I mean that's quite interesting. Like your dad being an entrepreneur, and now you finding yourself on this entrepreneurial path. Do you feel like with him being an entrepreneur, it made you feel more inclined to also want to try and explore a different route, or did that come about differently? Like
Look,
how's that been for you?
it was really different, to be honest. What my parents wanted me to do, or what they pushed me to do, was to find a stable 9 to 5 job because they were entrepreneurs, in their essentially their 20s till now. um, which is quite interesting, to be honest, because I guess they know the stress, they know the pressure, and the amount of work it takes to essentially like make it or to become successful. And it was actually one of the reasons why I pursued data analytics, because it was a stable job that paid well as well. So my journey of an entrepreneur has and still has a lot of friction between my parents, because what I've essentially told them was this is something that I really want to do. Um, I'm not feeling happy. I'm not feeling fulfilled working a 9 to 5 because, look, I'm curious about so many different topics, and specializing is not my thing, and I don't enjoy it.
Yeah. Yo, this is quite relatable because my father, when I was growing
Yeah.
up, he was also like a business owner. He was also on his entrepreneurial trip, and he owned a grocery store. Um and I would oftentimes, have to help out in the grocery store, but I don't want to say like I missed it, but I kind of like wished I had gotten some insights from him, while he was going through that period. And I never
Mm.
actually, I don't know if that's where my, or you say like tendencies for wanting to have my own business or, wanting to be an entrepreneur comes from. But now that I think about it, I never really had a moment to sit down with him and talk about, yeah, like, like our relationship in that regard. And I don't know how that is with you and your father or, parents in general, but have you ever really gotten an opportunity to like sit down and like talk about like their journey in entrepreneurship and, like and just connecting it to you and you wanting to pursue entrepreneurship? Yeah.
Yeah. So I've because of like immigrating here with just my parents, I have a very close relationship with mum and dad. They're really my best friends and
Mm.
sometimes my best supporters and sometimes my biggest critics as well. So I've had these chats with them about me pursuing being a creator and also starting my own business. And what what basically, like, the long story short, the conversation would always end being they try to give me like a realistic mindset, which I personally don't like. For example, in the back end at the moment, I'm actually building a fashion company, and they've built a fashion brand themselves, or they owned like a hush puppy brand in the 90s in Shenyang, and it was one of the first ones, and it was a big brand in China at the time. However, I think they failed miserably in that, and it's things like this. They'll be like, "Have you thought about MOQs? Have you thought about XYZ?" And I'm like, "Actually, I have." And they're like, "Do you know how to execute it?" And I'll be like, "No, I don't. I'm going to execute, fail, and then learn from this. This is my method. This is my way of thinking, and this is how I'm going to approach entrepreneurship. Like, I don't have the perfect plan, but that's because the perfect plan had held me back for way too long already."
Yeah. And don't you find it quite fascinating that, I mean, again, no judgment, but just more so they're bringing these questions to you, which are, of course, valid questions. But
Mm.
sometimes I wonder when they ask the questions if they, if they would reflect and think to themselves, hey, but this is actually how I figured it out too. Like I didn't know what I was doing, and I just had to figure it out along the way. So I'm just curious to know, like, do you know how that was for them? Like, did they had to basically learn everything on their own, or did they themselves had some kind of like yeah, maybe, yeah, mentorship? I'm not sure if you really said that back then,
Yeah.
but did they have someone that was guiding them through this process?
So, okay, that's a good question. Let me gather my thoughts first. So, for context, Dad was a salesperson. He was a salesman.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
I think at first it was a winery. You can't quote me on this because I'm actually not
No,
sure exactly the details.
it's fine. Yeah, yeah.
But essentially, when Dad wanted to start his own business, he already had a few clients under his belt. And once he signed
Mm,
his first client, I believe he got lucky with a big client. One of his first one, I think it was a government, in the government public sector. And he
mm,
was able to use that capital to build out a team very quickly. And so from that part, I think things just happened very quickly where he was on a salary to suddenly he was able to build a team and he didn't need to learn the nitty gritty side of business. He just knew the talent and then put it into place.
Oh yeah. Okay, okay. Yeah, so it was kind of being in the right place at the right time and everything kind of like conspiring, in your
Yeah, yeah.
favor. And
Yeah. So I think that was in the early 90s. There was China was going through a major economic boom. I forgot who the person in charge was, but that was when China opened the borders to international, and
uh
business was just booming then. So if you were an entrepreneur, if you took the risk, from what Dad was saying, a lot of people, a majority, actually succeeded, which was unlike I think the current climate.
yeah. Okay. Okay, okay. And so, when you would have this conversation with them, because I've never really had this conversation with my parents, telling them, I want to be a creator, or like venturing on this creator path as well. And so I'm wondering for you, like when you talk to them about this, do you bring it across as you're wanting to be a creator? And if so, how do they understand it, or how is it landing by them? I'm really curious.
Mm-mm-mm. With the creator side, I don't think they fully understood it until I had a my first post that went viral. When I was in China, actually, when because we were traveling together, that was when they finally saw it, because they were just like, "You're just posting your thoughts online. Like anyone can do
Hmm.
that. Why do you think your ideas are better than other people?" And to be honest, like, just to give feedback on that. It's just like, I don't think my ideas are better than other people. I think everyone has great ideas. It's the only difference is I'm publicly showing my ideas, and somewhere along the line it will be validated. So they understood what it meant to be a creator when that first viral post hit, and it reached 2.3 million people.
Oh
And
wow.
then they were like, wow, okay, you're onto something. And then, because being an entrepreneur, I just really laid out for him, being like, Dad, oil was the main currency before, still great currency right now. The main currency right now in this digital media age is attention. If you can capture attention and direct it into something else, whether that's like a value creation product or service, that's the secret of being a successful entrepreneur. And when I had explained that to him, it just clicked.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess for him, in his business acumen, he understands reach and distribution, and just leveraging my apologies, and just leveraging, yeah, that reach into what you're doing. And so, I mean, 3 million is not nothing. What do you remember what that post was about?
Yeah. So just to correct, it was 2.3 million. The post was about modern slavery,
Mm,
which was, I can't quite remember the hook, but it was
yeah.
something along the lines of top two signs that you are a modern slave. And I think I said something like, you work a 9 to 5, and something else. I really can't remember. I got so much hate for that post, man. Especially people in the comments. They were like, "Call me a slave to my face," and I was like, "Oh, this is being like misunderstood. This is not what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to call you a slave."
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's funny how, I mean, in terms of like reach, how the negative and the positive comments just help to like push out, like your message. Um, but what do you, so if you had to clarify it, if and someone was watching this, like how would you kind of clarify what you meant in that post?
Yeah, I can. Okay, I would say I was really explaining my own feelings when I
Mm-hmm.
was working as a data analyst, specifically a data consultant. Um, although it was a 9 to 5, I was being worked like a horse, like an animal from my mind, where it was really like you got to get this done at this speed, at this rate. You need to think faster. You need to do things faster. And I was like, holy crap, man! Like by the end of every day, I was just tired, worn out, unfulfilled, depressed. It was all these feelings, and it really just triggered in my mind. I was like, okay, look, as a society, as the human race, we've really evolved and improved from traditional slavery. However, this 9 to 5 system and exploiting employees now, there's still room for improvement. So this, which is why I coined the term modern slavery, which is kind of just being in front of a desk and just being treated like a number, like work faster, keep going.
Yeah. No, I mean, I share some of that in I mean, if I look at my own experience in terms of just being a number, that is something, you know, you maybe when you're in it, you don't really realize, but for me it was always apparent when, let's say, if I were, you know, working and I would, you know, fall ill, and you would think, oh man, you know, like I can't be getting sick right now because like there's work that needs to be done. At least, you know, that's how I felt. But then you'd be out, and then the work would still get done, right? And then people wouldn't really necessarily like worry too much about you while you're out. um and it's just more so, okay, when are you gonna get back, XYZ. And then it was in those moments where, you know, you never really felt like they really cared about your well-being, so to speak. And to some extent I get it, like, you know, there's, it's a business, like you know, you need to get shit done. um
Hmm.
but I guess it can also depend on the company, where there's really no compassion for like the people, really. It goes to a certain extent and no more. and and yeah, you feel that, and that's like a messed up feeling. And then it's like, you know, you're turning your gears, you're putting in this effort, and it's also, if it's not being recognized the way you would, you know, hope for it to be recognized, then you kind of start wondering, like, what am I doing this for? Like, no one really even cares about me.
Yeah, honestly, exactly. That was actually how I felt. There was just instances where I felt like my employer and my colleagues didn't really give a shit, and it's something that's quite popular, I think, on LinkedIn these days, or before, where it's just like people were mentioned like we're a family, and then I honestly, I it's my strong pet peeve, and I don't use the word hate lightly, but I really hate it when companies use that type of language with people because it sounds inclusive.
Hmm.
However, I really find that type of language manipulative because family, for me personally, it's unconditional love and it's compassion, it's empathy. I think a better way for companies to coin this term is use the word team, like a sports team, because that's like we're comrades on we're comrades on like a sports field. I've got your back, etc. So that's just my little spiel on the company cultures and their way of framing things.
Yeah, I know. I definitely get the manipulative part, because it's almost when you're in it, then it's when you realize, okay, now you're talking a good talk, but behind the scenes, you're not really showing that, you know, or it doesn't feel that way. Okay, so you've been in the creative space for a while, and you know, if it's one thing that I'm realizing is that it does take a lot of guts, you know, to put yourself out there in the open and say you're going to share your ideas, you're going to share your thoughts and your perspectives on whatever topics that you're sharing on, and in your case, entrepreneurship, mindset, well-being. And so I guess I kind of want to come back to the creative side, and kind of ask, like, what made you say I'm going to be a creator?
Hmm. I didn't. I didn't. Like, okay, no, okay, no, no, no. Like, let me explain that.
Yeah.
Because I was going through monk mode, there was a realization that I knew I am a creator simply by being human. And I
Mm.
think this perceptive change happened when I went off social media and my relationship with social media and how I looked at things differently. I would say, let's say, take back maybe a year or two ago. I think that's something that I would have believed in and be like, it's like, oh, I'm going to become a creator. I don't I understand that approach and that mindset. And if it works for an individual, it works. What helped me for this push to get my ideas out was really just, this is my life and I'm just kind of documenting my journey. I'm documenting my thoughts, and it's something for myself to look back into. And it's also, I don't know, I want children. I like kids, so I guess my kids can go back being like, oh dad, or like granddad, and it's like, oh, look what he did. This was his first post. And then it was just like what you read out to me. That was phenomenal, man.
Yeah. I mean, I love the fact that you said like you didn't really have to think about it, because for you being a creator, it's essentially it comes down to just being. Because I've had that where it's like I'm telling myself, like I want to be a content creator. I want to be a content creator. And I can't remember exactly what the turning point was, but then I realized, okay, if we come back to the basics of, like what is a creator is basically someone that takes an idea and makes it something tangible, puts it in some kind of tangible form for you to consume. And the simplest way that we are creators is by just viewing ourselves, by looking at ourselves and the conversations that we have. The fact that we have conversations, it's already in its most basic form showing that we are a creator, because we're taking our thoughts that are not nothing, but are not yet in the open, and we're putting it out there. And by doing that simple task, we are in essence a creator. And so then I realized, okay, for me, then I guess what I wanted to do was be more a digital creator, where I take my ideas and then put them into a digital format. And it was realizing that I don't really need to do a whole lot to be a creator. It's initially in its essence, but maybe the type of creator I wanted to be, probably that's what I was aiming for when I said, okay, I want to be a creator. Or I should have then said I want to be a digital creator. And yeah, so I love the fact that you said that. And um documenting your journey, like how has that been for you? Like how have you experienced creating content from the perspective of documenting your journey?
Really, really difficult. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it and be like, hey guys, it's so easy. I'm still learning to document my journey, and there's a lot of my life that I'm still not recording down, whether, and I mean that more from like visually. So far what I'm documenting is just on threads. It's really how I think and my perspective on certain topics, specifically mindset, entrepreneurship, and wellness. I do a lot of other things, such as like I go for like 3 runs every week, and I train in the gym every day as well, meditation. And these are things that I'm not posting online. I'm still in the process of figuring out like, how can I integrate all this into my content. And there's still like fashion that I want to do as well. So truly like documenting everything is still something I'm working on, and I'm finding it difficult. I don't quite have the answers yet.
Yeah. And I mean, in all fairness, let's maybe clear that up a bit. When we document the journey, does it necessarily mean we have to put it all on video per se? Because I think what you're doing and what you have been doing, on threads, that is a form of documenting the journey, right? You're taking us along on, the personal development journey that you find yourself on, and you're sharing your ideas, your writings, your findings, going through that process. That's one form of documenting the journey. And again, that comes back to what we were just talking about with being a creator. Maybe the form that you want to document your journey, you want to enhance or add, and that being
Mm.
in the video form, right? The best way I like to look at it is, it was with a conversation that I had with Kat. He's someone who speaks on personal branding, and it's gonna always stick with me because he said it beautifully in terms of like building your brand. Like you can just literally build your brand on threads, in the written form, and if you want to add a visual identity to what you're doing, then you can add a video form, and then you can do that on threads, or its connected platform, Instagram. And so, it's I think it's like a mindset shift in, what it means to document the journey. The whole, I guess, the point I wanted to make, not to go on a tangent, um, is that we can find creating content difficult, but from the lens of documenting the journey, we have so much content and more to put out there. It's ridiculous. I guess that's more, I'm wondering, like, if you feel that way in terms of when it comes to putting out content, because you're coming at it from a documenting your journey perspective. Is it easier than just trying to like pull matter out of thin air and then post about something?
Okay, in that essence of like kind of creating content, no, it's been a bit of a piece of cake. If I'm honest
Mm-hmm.
with you, it's at first I would say it was hard. In the first 1 to 3 months, I was actually intentionally sitting down and being like, Stanley, this is your time that you're going to write, and you're going to write
Mm-hmm.
about whatever comes into your mind. However, just like training your chest, training your biceps in the gym, as you do more reps, your muscle gets bigger. So if we do more reps with the bicep curl, our biceps will get bigger eventually. Progressive overload. It's the same thing for the mind. Once you start practicing writing and writing specific topics, this part of the brain, I don't actually know which part, but that's gonna get bigger and it's gonna get trained. So I'm at a stage now, just looking at the date, 11 months into my writing journey, the ideas come and it could just be a little topic. And then I'll write that down on my phone. Now I'm just threading on my phone. I'll be like, okay, now how can I craft a message around
Mm-hmm.
this? How can I
Yeah.
write a hook? Like, what are the insights that I'm doing and what value is this? What I'm
Yeah.
doing recently with my content is actually I'm writing purely for myself, which, for example, I'm not writing for my past self. I'm actually writing to my present self. And it could be an advice. For example, if I'm feeling bad today, and then I realize this, and I'm like, okay, Stanley, that type of mindset is not helpful. What would you say if someone else was going through that? And then from that lens, I'll be like, okay, I can write something about mindset to really change the perspective.
Yeah, I absolutely love that because I think I'm not sure if I made a post on it, but I remember talking to someone about it, for sure, and saying probably 95 or 98% of the posts that I make are to a version of myself, whether that was my past self, my present self, or my future self. And like what you said, okay, when you're in the game, you start learning how to craft it. And so then I craft it in the you form so that it can resonate with other people. So I'm not just talking about myself in the I form, but then I say you form so that if someone needed to read that message, it's like they feel spoken to, and then they can, act accordingly. And of course, like I mix I in there as well. But I honestly feel like that's the best way to create. Like you stress less and you create more when you just say, okay, this is an advice that I want to make for myself, or a maxim that I hold to, and I just want to have it out there so that I can refer back to it later down the line. And that just makes it so much more seamless in just putting content out there. And okay, as a creator now, like, what has been your biggest struggle being a creator?
Ooh, my biggest struggle. Whew. Is that specifically for content or
In
just like
general,
some
just
challenges? Okay.
just in general, like, what's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest struggle now being in the creator space, for so
Mm,
long? Because you know yourself now a lot more. And I
yeah.
mean, I can tell you like a ton of mines, but I'm curious to know, like,
Yeah.
what is yours?
Two that's popped up in my mind. The first one was when I was, can't remember, maybe like 3, 4 months into my creator journey. I was starting to build like a little cohort of other creators on threads, and there was a sudden drop off. Like a lot of people just quit after a few months. I didn't realize how much that was going to affect my motivation.
Hmm.
Because look, the people that I was engaging with every day for like 3 months as a creator with like 40 followers, they were gone, and I was like, oh man, I feel like I had to start again. But I stuck it out. I kept posting, and look, I met new creators along the line. That was one of my biggest struggles that I encountered early on, which I didn't expect. My
Mm-hmm.
second biggest struggle, these two are honestly equally as high, which was actually two months ago now, maybe like just under 2 months ago. I saw a drop in my engagement and also my reach on my threads. And gosh, man, like I know those are vanity metrics, and every creator would tell you not to focus on that stuff. But look, as a creator, you do care about it. You do, at least I care about my reach. I care about the number of likes, the number of comments. Without that type of external validation, it made me question if my work was good enough. That was something I really struggled with. However, to like, I guess to any viewers that's listening to this, that's thinking about posting content or are making content, keep sticking at it. It's hard and it's shit. But look, I stuck it out, and what I actually saw after that was actually a meteoric rise in my reach and follower account. So, yeah, the external validation, man, that was difficult.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I definitely understand that, because it's also a form of, I guess, understanding or knowing if your content is resonating, um, or is landing, with people. And going through I guess going through like a challenge or a struggle like that, it can really put you at the brink of wondering, like, okay, what the hell am I doing?
Hmm.
So in that moment, like, what would you say was the mindset shift that you needed to make to really push through? Because I mean, I guess that engagement drop was for a period in time, was, for like a while, where it probably got you thinking, like, what's going on. But like, what was the can you remember, maybe, or speak to what mindset shift you would have to make to kind of get through that?
Yeah, yeah. So the period was roughly like 2 weeks. I would say the mindset shift, or like a mindset that's helped me, was things that I've learned from running and also the gym, which is keep going. You're not
Mm.
going to hit a PR every single week. And look, you just got to keep posting these ideas and it will eventually get pushed out. That's how the algorithm works. The algorithm wants to love you so bad. You just need to give it the opportunity. And the best opportunity for the algorithm to love you is to keep posting. And I like to link this back with running. Like, look, when I started running, man, I was struggling with like 1 kilometer, And after 2 years, I ran my first marathon. For
Mm.
me, it was really something that I thought it was impossible. And I've already accomplished the impossible. So when I go through tough moments in my life or as my different journeys, I always go back to that point when we're like, come on, man, you struggled with like 1 kilometer and you ran freaking 42 kilometers. Like, you can do this. And
Yeah.
finally, this is something that might resonate with more people who aren't runners is reach out for support.
Mm.
Reach out to other creators, speak to your close buddies. They don't need to understand, but it's just to really get this out of your system because I think it's really healthy to kind of just get it out, get this off your chest, and you will feel better. I personally reached out to my creator friends, and they were all very understanding. So that's my, I guess, my tip
It's
and advice and mindset shift.
it's funny that you said that because I think it was just either this morning or yesterday I saw a creator, mention or asking, what do you do when like you feel like you're on this brink of maybe not stopping, but where your engagement is down and you're just not sure what to do or if you should continue. And my response was like almost similar to what you just said, the last part, where I basically told them you should connect with other creator buddies, like find a creator buddy that you can like talk to and just vent, because just letting that stuff out and getting it out of your system, it's also a way for you to work through that phase, that period. And it also helps you to bring some clarity in what you're doing, and also speaking with that person, you'll get some insights and whatnot, and that usually also helps to like spark like motivation again for you to say, okay, let's go through it. But I also guess it comes down to that feeling of just not feeling alone on this journey. It's like, yes, we are doing things separately from one another, but it doesn't mean that we have to walk the path alone. And so that's a really good point. And I know you mentioned like running and working out quite a bit. Has that been essential to your journey as a creator then?
Absolutely. Like running and working out, this actually ties down to the entrepreneur journey and also the creator journey. I didn't start off with, I want to become an entrepreneur. So I started pursuing self development after a tough breakup when I was 21 years old. And I was like, man, I just got to get better, like whether this is improving my mindset, improving my relationship with my parents and friends. um, I started off with really just like with psychology, and I was like, okay, I need to understand my own psychology. I don't want to feel alone ever again, and to do this, I want to acquire knowledge. So after when I started that journey, it was, I would say running was one of the first things that pushed me to my absolute limits. Um, Ran my first marathon, and then within that 2 year period when I was training for it, look, I calculated it just for this show. I ran over 4,000 kilometers in 2 years. And that was, man, that was just training 3 times a week. And every run would be 5 to 10 kilometers.
Damn, 4,000 kilometers. Oh man, like I'm happy if I run 15 kilometers in a month.
Yeah, yeah. So it was running for me, and as I built up my endurance, there was I also had a lot of childhood trauma of being Asian in a predominantly white school, because Asians look biologically, genetically, we are a bit shorter, and also we're a bit scrawnier. And this is just a massive generalization. And I know not it doesn't that doesn't apply to every Asian person, but because of that, I always felt emasculated. So I wanted to go to the gym and prove to myself, I mean, like, well, if you feel like you're weak, go do something about it. Go hit the gym. And as I started to build my endurance and started to build my own strength, it just catapulted me into, okay, Stanley, you've done your you're doing your healing, you've done the physical. I've also missed out on my meditation journey where I've been on this for 2 years. I was like, okay, you've checked off your mental, you've checked off your physical, your spiritual. The final jigsaw of the puzzle is financial. And I saw entrepreneur and the creator economy or the creator journey as the gateway into this. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, so many good things there, but I guess the biggest takeaway, that I got from you there is just how important physical exercise is to your overall well-being, because I can also relate to when you do a physical activity where you need to like push through like the pain, especially when it comes to running, because like that's something that'll challenge you where, yeah, when you think you have no more to give, like you're just somehow able to like tap into like a reservoir of energy and just like push through until you're finished. And just using those experiences in your entrepreneurship journey, on your business journey, to say that, hey, I'm going through a period where, yes, I'm not sure if I'm going to make it through. Like, I almost want to give up. But if there's anything that, let's say in this case, running has taught me, is that I always have more to give. And so, you can use that to help fuel you to, yeah, just see things through until you're on the up and coming again. Yo, Stanley, we are coming close to the end of the conversation because I want to, I love to keep these around an hour long. I guess the one last thing I want to ask you before we start moving to wrap things up is, what's next for you on your creator journey?
Yeah. So what's next? I haven't really quite thought about this. I think in the short term, I guess for like the next 3 to 6 months, continue to see me posting daily on threads, and that's where I'm going to be. I do have plans on funneling my content onto YouTube. However, it's not going to be the same genre as what I write about on threads. I kind of want that to be a bit more visual, and I want to start documenting my fashion startup.
Ooh, okay. That sounds exciting. I'm a big fan of people documenting their journey. Like if it's not a parent, if it hasn't been a parent throughout this conversation, I'll just make it clear again. I just love it. And just seeing people start from very humble and, I don't want to say insecure, but just very, yeah, humble beginnings, and just saying like, this is what I'm gonna do. I have no idea how it's gonna pan out, or what I'll run into, where I'll be in 6 months. But this is me starting. I would love to have you here on this ride, on this journey. Like I just love that type of content. And so yeah, be sure to like, yeah, I mean, I follow you, so I'm gonna know when you drop that video. You already started your YouTube journey. I love your first video. So just looking forward to seeing, how things will develop with your, yeah, with the clothing brand that you want to set up. Um, so like I said, we are coming down to the end of the conversation, and it's been fantastic. I know there are many more things that we can touch base on, but we're gonna keep that for a part two. What I want to do is end this with some quick hit questions, where I'm just gonna ask you some simple questions unrelated to what we were talking about, and yeah, you have an opportunity to answer it as fast as possible or in one to two sentences. So whenever you're ready, just let me know you're ready, and we will get things going.
Let's go, man. I'm ready.
Okay, all right, let's get it. What's one book you believe everyone should read to better themselves?
Ooh. this is coming from someone who doesn't read a lot of books, but the one that I love is 33 Laws of Business and Life by Stephen Bartlett, The Diary of the CEO.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to go why, or that just leave that there?
Now, now we can leave it there. We can leave it there. We can, people who are watching this conversation, I mean, they get a sense of you. So if you give a recommendation, I think that's enough for them to say, that got me curious. Because I know, I think I did see you make a post about the Diary of the CEO when I was scanning your content. Next question. If you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
Bodybuilding.
Ay,
Mm.
nice. Okay, okay. And is that more, just quickly, is that more for technique or power? Like what
Technique. Yeah, specifically technique and
technique? Okay.
getting, yeah, maximizing muscle building with like no injuries.
Okay, okay. That's a good one. What's the most unexpected lesson this journey has taught you?
Oh, I'd say the importance of connection with other creators. That's the most important thing that I didn't expect to value before I started this journey.
I love that. I love that. If you could send a message to yourself 10 years ago, what would you say?
You are competent.
Wow. I, yeah, I felt that one. I felt that one.
Whew.
I felt that one. If you had to pick one creator that has had the biggest impact on you, who would it be?
Oh, this is hard, man. I got two that's just so close. Okay, the first one will be Stephen Bartlett. So I'm kind of repeating myself with because I just mentioned his book. I'm just going to give you a second juicy one, which is Chris Williamson from Modern Wisdom. These are the two
Mm,
creators that I listen to every single day. I learn so much about what's going on in the world and also like interesting science, such as like neuroscience.
mm.
They back up business with psychology and science, and it's just beautiful.
Ah, nice, nice. And now the last question. Looking ahead 50 years from now, what do you hope people would say about your body of work?
Oh, damn, man. I haven't thought about this one, eh? In 50 years.
This is the Body of Work podcast, bro. This is it's all
Yeah.
about in 10, 20, 50 years, what do you want to look back and be proud of? And now in this case, what would you hope people say about your body of work that you are putting out and will continue to put out?
You know what's weird? Like, I haven't actually thought about the 50-year mark, but I've thought about a few hundred years down the track. Which yeah, talk about playing long game, right? Um, but look, I think it's kind of similar, which is really like when people look back and I'm not around anymore, and people be like, "Wow, this guy really shared a lot of wisdom for free." I mean, like this is so. When I talk about this, I'm thinking about like Stoicism, where it's like
Hmm.
where I look back and I'm like, wow, that is relevant for me today.
Yeah, that it's timeless.
Timeless.
Yeah, nice, nice. Stan the man. Bro, it was a pleasure having you here on the Body of Work podcast. I really want to thank you. I really appreciate you for taking the time out again. Like I said, it's nighttime where you are, and for you to, just make that effort to say you're gonna do this with so much energy. man, I couldn't have asked for anything else. And so, with that said, I just want to ask you before I close things out, do you have any final things that you any final things that you want to say before I round it off?
Whew. Let me think, hey. You have to think again. I think if I was to leave a piece of last word, this is once again for myself, maybe for my younger self, is you don't fail when you don't quit. You fail when you're not trying, and yeah, that's all I've got to say, man.
Okay. I mean, yo, that's good. I mean, I that's beautiful. And now to you, the listener, if you want to get in touch with Stanley, you can find him on Instagram and on Threads primarily. And his handle there is Stanley Wang. I'm going to put everything in the show notes so you can just scroll down there and check it out. And with that said, I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode on the BOWpod, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.